In this video, we'll be learning how to get your data out of R, or what that's called, or what we'll be doing is writing CSV files. So what we've been doing so far is we've been getting data into R and then doing stuff on it, with the whole import dataset stuff. And speaking of, I do have this test dataset right here. If you have watched a missing values video, it's the same dataset from that. And if you do want to download it, there will be a link to it in the description along with this whole .r file with all the code filled out if you want to reference that. But we know how to get data into R. We have CSV files. I have a bunch of CSV files in this folder right here. But what if you, import something in, you make some data, you clean it up, maybe you get rid of the NAs. Like in this case, test has some NAs in it. Maybe what I want to do is use R to get rid of the missing values, and then I want to spit it back out, put it back on my computer, but without the NAs. Well, that's what writing CSV files is. That's what writing data out of R is. Now, this is something they do ask you to do on several homeworks plus the projects. And I know with project 1, which happened semi-recently at the time of this recording, you got a lot of points just for writing your cleaned data set out of R and turning that in. And that got you a lot of free points. So this is good to know. So in order to take a data set in R and save it to your computer, we're going to use a command called write.csv. Before we go into it, there is something important we should do first. So R has what's called a working directory. There's a place on your computer that R will save everything by default. And by everything, I mean like it'll save your R scripts. It'll save any files you write out with write.csv. Like for instance, if I click save right here, you see it takes me to my tutoring folder because this is my working directory. It automatically wants to go here. Now, when you click save, it's probably going to take you to your downloads or your documents. I think those are like defaults. If you're on a Mac, I know yours looks different than this, but it will still take you somewhere on your, whatever your file explorer thing is called. I can't remember, but it's good to generally set this to somewhere, you could just do your downloads folder if you want, and that's fine, but it's also good to know at least where it is. But I'm also going to show you how to set it to somewhere. Like for instance, if you have a specific folder for all your stats stuff, all your R stuff goes to that folder automatically, and that's really nice. So to set your working directory, you can use this command called setwd, and then you have to put in your whole file path here. And I think that's generally how they teach it. But the much easier way is that RStudio will let you do it yourself, basically, with its UI. Like how when you import datasets, we can do it really easily in RStudio instead of having to do this whole read CSV command. So basically, if we look at this bottom right panel here, and in the Files tab, you'll see it's basically, it's just a bunch of files, files on your computer. Normally, this defaults to wherever your working directory is, though I took it off just for the purposes of this video. But to set a working directory, all you have to do is basically go to wherever you want to set it. So for instance here, I could scroll down and find it, but there's a ... right here. And if you click this, you can go and see my tutoring folder is my working directory, so it brought it up automatically. But say I'm here in my documents, I'd go up my R folder, tutoring. Yeah, I want this to be my working directory. So I'm going to open it up, and you see this is my tutoring folder now, everything in my tutoring. And to set it as my working directory, because that didn't set it, that just got it here. What you do is you just click this little gear right here, and then click set as working directory. And you'll see if we do that, it'll run, it'll actually run the setwd code for us. And this is a very simplified version of it. But now everything I save in R, will go directly to this folder. Now, if you do want to figure out where your working directory is, like maybe before you set it or whatever, you can do a command called getwd. And if you run this, you'll see it'll tell me, oh, it's in my users, Denjax and OneDrive documents R2. This is where that folder is. You can also get to it on R if you just click this little R cube right here. You see that takes me directly to my tutoring folder. So there's multiple different ways to do it. Once we've set our working directory and we know where our data is going to go to, now we can write out a CSV. So let's say that we want to get rid of the NAs in the test dataset and export that file, put that back on our computer. So you just want to remove these NAs. Well, I have a whole video about how to deal with NAs. In this case, we're just going to completely remove the rows of NAs. We're going to do a mission just for the purposes of this video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new data set. I'm going to call this clean test, because a lot of times people like to call things clean once they, remove NAs, change some variables around. Stuff we'll probably get into later. We'll probably do some data cleaning, but you can name it whatever you want. And also, I know I've mentioned this before in a previous video, when you see this arrow thing, that's the same as equals. You can use the arrow or an equal sign. It doesn't really matter. But what we're going to do is we're going to name this data set. I'm calling it clean test. I'm going to say that this is our test data set just without the NAs. And to remind you, the na.emit function just spits back the same data set just without the rows of the NAs. So now if I run the whole thing, you'll see clean test has popped up here on the right, and it's just our data set without the NAs. So perfect. We have that data set. Let's get it out of R and onto our computer. So the way we're going to do that is the write.csv command. So the first thing we put in is what data set, what up here do we want to get out of R? I'm wanting to get the clean test out of R. So I'm going to type in clean test. Then we do a comma. Now the second thing we do is in quotation marks, and the quotation marks are important. You type in whatever you want the file to be called on your computer. Most people just do the exact same name. Like I could do cleantest.csv, but just to show you, you can do any name. I'm going to do test no nas.csv. Now you could technically run this at this point and you would get something written back to your computer. And actually I'm going to do it just to show you why you shouldn't run it like this. So basically if I run this, nothing looks like it happened. But actually if you do scroll over here, you should see, oh, test no nas.csv popped up. And if I go to my file explorer down here, you'll see that it is, yep, here it is right here. I'm going to open this in Excel and we will see what the problem is. It opened on my other monitor. Here, I'll drag it over. So you'll see when we run it, we get our data set and that's good. But you see it adds an extra column for the row numbers. It's not good. Because see now, let's say you take that data set and you send it to someone else and they put it into their R. We'll go to the import. And now you'll see there's a whole nother column for the row numbers. That's not really helpful because like you'll see R already puts row numbers. You don't want that extra column. It just makes things more complicated. To get rid of it, all you have to do is put a third argument right here. Just after your name, you put a comma. We'll type in row.names. You'll see it starts to autofill here. Row.names equals false. And for false, you can do a capital F or the word false. It's saying do not add a column with the row names. And you'll see if I run this, well, this actually gave me an error, but that's because I had the Excel file open on my computer still. And so it couldn't write it over while it was open. But you'll see now if I run it, yeah, make sure if you're overwriting something, don't have it up on your computer still. And if I run it now, you'll see it just overwrit the old one. And if I open this up, you'll see that yes, this is our actual data set. There's no extra columns. So yes, when writing a data set, again, first thing, name of the data set you want to get out, what you want it to be called on your computer. And then lastly, just always put this in. There's never really, I can't think of a reason where you wouldn't want to put this in. So just add it. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I mean, that pretty much covers all the basics. If you have any questions about writing CSVs, how to get your data out of R, leave those in the comments. I will get back to them as soon as I can. If you have questions about other statistics things and I haven't made a video on it, or even if I have, just leave those in the comments too and I'll get to you as soon as I can. But yeah, I hope this was helpful.